Guys, welcome back to another episode of the Hawks Zone Rundown. Man, we're coming at you a little bit of an emergency podcast tonight. Obviously, the huge news that everybody's been tuning into now is the Mike MacDonald hiring as the new head coach of the Seahawks. But guys, real quick, before we get into all that, make sure you hit the subscribe button and the like button and the notification button that you see down here at the bottom of your screen. And you know what? Also, any audio platform you're on, Spotify, Apple Pods, all that stuff, we're on there too. So give that a like and subscribe. And you'll know when future episodes are popping up. So, but yeah, man, huge news today. One of the guys that we've talked about was on our list, and coming over from the Ravens, defensive coordinator Mike MacDonald. B. Rice, man, what's your thoughts on the huge news? And man, we finally got our guy. Now we can kind of start moving forward here.
Yeah, we actually can start moving forward, which will be nice. Once Ben Johnson, we talked about it, ad nauseum outside of the pod, but once Ben Johnson took his name out of the thing, this was the guy. This was the guy for me after that. I know everyone wanted to steer into offense. I thought Mike Kafka maybe might possibly get the job. But the more I looked at it, the more I went, if you like everyone wanted to steer offense, and the problem with that in some respects is you're never going to catch McVay and Shanahan because they are so innovative and they are the pinnacle of what offense is right now in the NFL. So if you can't catch them offensively, slow them down. And Mike MacDonald proved this year he can do that. And he did it to every single variation off that Shanahan tree. Mike McDaniel, Kyle Shanahan, Sean McVay, and even Andy Reid and what they do. So, I look at it and I kind of go, why not grab the guy that's giving them the most problems? Yeah, we may not beat the Niners next year, but I think we're going to give them a hell of a lot more of a tough out than what we've been previously giving them under the Pete Carroll regime.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much to be seen now. I mean, we like as far as even thinking about the Niners, but like you said, it's like, we were so hyped on going offensive minded head coach, and Ben Johnson was a guy that we wanted. And but you know what? You look at that, and I agree, man. Like you coming in, and what he did to the Niners, and like especially the previous game where they just it was an onslaught, and they just put it on the Niners, and then so here's a guy coming in already confident, playing these teams, and then coming over young pieces on this defense, right? And so that he likes a lot of these pieces that we already have. He's not, like we mentioned on the pod before, he's coming to a team that won 9 games with a lot of skill set. So it's not like he's coming to like the Commanders, for example, that yeah, they got a high draft pick, they got some, a lot of money that's available to them. But again, we talked about what franchise is more desirable. Yeah, not even the pieces aside, just from the top down, and this is a winning organization, and to get a guy like this, and he just seems like a super confident dude coming in here, and that's what we talked about. A guy that I know he's talked about as a bit of an introvert and all this kind of stuff, but you know, John's gonna be able to work with this guy, signs a 6-year deal, comes in, and going from the oldest coach to the youngest coach, I think that's something we wanted to. We wanted that sort of youth and a guy that can kind of come up with this team and just I know we talked offense, but I think this is going to be a good thing. Like you said, slow him down, man. Yeah, I like that right there.
I honestly think that's what you can do. And the thing was our offense, you know, isn't so archaic that it with the talent around it that it can't, you know, move the ball on these two teams. Our biggest issues, we haven't been able to slow them down. How many times have we been in close games with the Niners in the first half? Second half rolls around and they just blow right by our defense in the second half. There's no adjustments. You look at the adjustments Mike MacDonald made in the second half of the AFC Championship game. You held the best quarterback on the planet to 0 points with one of the best offensive coaches on the other sideline. And your offense was doing nothing to help you. Like, think about it. You're walking into that game now, in hindsight, you don't think the Ravens would have taken on offense going, hey, we just got to score 18 points and we win the game against the Chiefs? Like, come on. So, like, for me, I look at this and I go, He's the literally now the youngest coach in the NFL. But just reading some of the stuff about him, like what his players have said about him, how, like, using the term genius is, pretty high praise, but just how detailed he is with everything that he does and how committed he is to his players and their understanding of what he's asking them to do. Like, the dude sounds like he's got a bit of the Pete Carroll and the player support and that whole thing. But then it's like taking Pete Carroll and magnifying him by 10 on the football X's and O's side, where he's an innovator and he's, going to scheme up stuff and he's going to have these adjustments and all this kind of stuff. So it's going to be very interesting to see how this plays out.
Yeah, and like you said, like X's and O's and innovation, like the what you just said, like that's sort of what we're looking for too. I think we got caught up too much on like offensive, defensive. And I was saying that on previous pods, like, yeah, it's an offensive game and this and that, but he's now it's his job to go to work and find that OC, that guy that he can work with, right? So if you're confident in Mike and just kind of being that head coach, being that leader. And so you're gonna have to give him faith, like, have faith in him to go find that OC. But like you said, we're not some stagnant offense with like nobody. I mean, it's just gonna take some adjustments and then we can go from there, right? But as far as McDonald's concerned, like, you got a young guy now. He's innovative. He's coming off, you know, like an organization that just preaches like detail and hard work and defense under the Harbaugh tree, right? I mean, both, you know, Jim and John, right? So, I mean, as much as you might not, some people aren't a fan of them. I mean, they're winners, and he's coming out of that. So, and just the way the Ravens D was last year with literally guys having career years, a Clowney, guys coming off the couch kind of thing. Like it wasn't like a star-studded uh crazy names everywhere, you know what I mean? And then he was able to just get this defense. Like, this was a Super Bowl tier defense. And so you kind of look at us now, and I know we were like, well, let's just be a complimentary defense. Sure, you can still do that, but who knows? Maybe we can be better, and maybe Mike can get and the best out of what we got, like the Maffe's, the Halls. Obviously, Witherspoon, he's going to take care of himself, but just make him the best version of what he can be. The Woolens, like we talked about, like a guy that was just, dude, like you're a little bit lost this season. Like, you need somebody, right? So when you look at all those things, that's exciting to me. That's exciting to me to have a guy like that come in with this group.
The other thing that's exciting to me is I was listening to KJ and he was talking on Mike and Salk and Brock and Salk today. And he was saying that he's talked to some guys that are in Baltimore that have played in Baltimore under Mike McDaniel or Mike MacDonald. That is going to be my biggest problem, man. Is Mike McDaniel?
That's gonna be
It's going to be
tough.
driving me nuts. But no, with Mike MacDonald and the reality was is he said they hit him training camp. And KJ was like, these guys hit. Like, they don't get like what we got, where it was like with Pete, it was like, oh yeah, rap, thud, whatever. Like, they're taking guys to the ground in training camp. There's that level of intensity. The other thing that I think is going to be really interesting to see with Seattle now, the draft, free agency, I think are going to be completely different because Mike MacDonald stresses the front seven, the trenches. Pete was built from the back forward. Mike MacDonald's the opposite. He's built from the front back. And so I think you're going to see a heavy investment in that front seven. We're going to get bigger. I think we're going to get tougher. We're going to get more physical. And people have said, oh, like, oh, people already have started, oh, the LOB's coming back. Even freaking Robert Griffin III wrote that out on Twitter today, being like, oh, yeah, the Seahawks now with McDonald are going to bring back. No, the Seahawks physicality is going to come back. It's not going to be the LOB because you don't have those players. But the physicality, the tough nosedness, that's going to come back. And, it's interesting that they went with McDonald because John Schneider in his opening press conference when he got hired mentioned how he wanted to build something like Baltimore and Pittsburgh had. That's where you went to go get his guy from Baltimore, from the Harbaugh tree. They were on tough, like Michigan this year was a tough nosed football team. Baltimore was a tough nosed football team. So, I really look at it and I go, the other interesting thing with McDonald is like he saved Jim Harbaugh's career at Michigan. People don't really seem to understand that, but when Mike MacDonald went to Michigan as their defensive coordinator in 2021, he literally went there and his sole job was to stop Ohio State. What does he do his first year? Reinvents that defense. And within 2 weeks, he put in that defense at Michigan and they went on their tear and beat Ohio State later that year. So you look at a guy like that that then gets poached back to the other brother in Baltimore for 2 years of running his defense and taking a team that was 28 in DVOA, which is the same as the Seahawks this year, and turn them to one of the top teams in the NFL defensively. So, I think this is a home run hire. Everyone wanted Ben Johnson, but it's interesting now on another note there, Armac, with the whole Ben Johnson thing. He's got a weird personality, man, because there's a lot of stuff coming out about how he only wanted the Chargers job, and then all of a sudden there's, oh, it's the best place to win a Super Bowl. Like, he made a comment basically saying, and I can't preface it exactly, but essentially it was something like, I wanted to win a Super Bowl. This was the best spot for me. I've been around losing for 11 years. I want to stay somewhere I can win. So my head, I'm thinking now as a GM or something like that, well, do I even want to hire this guy because he's not prepared clearly to go through some rough times? Like, he just wants the roses. Um, so no, I think Ben Johnson's done a lot more damage to his. He probably will still get a job, but damage to his personality and his perceived way of showing himself to the league. And, I don't know, man. It's going to be really interesting that guy where he gets a job next year because, both the situation with the Commanders, like, I know the Commanders have their issues, but new ownership, lots of money, number two pick, like, you could have done much worse.
Well, we thought it was all but done. Like we remember we had Rob on the show, Rob Staten on the show, and I even said, hey, we're talking Ben, like this could be our number one candidate, but is he all but gone to Washington? And he's like, yeah, no, he's probably going there. So like, a lot of guys thought that so he was the guy. He had ties there. They had, like you said, he can grow with the young quarterback because they're gonna have a top pick, right? So they're gonna take one of the top QBs, and like you said that's why this whole we can play a guessing game in there, but if you're not in that interview room, you can sit down and get a feel for these guys, and so that's why when he sat down with Mike, and like you said, this could have been John's number one the whole way through, and he's just not going to show his hand, which makes sense. And you know what? And I look at this and I think for all Seahawks fans, we're excited where this is going. A young guy, like in our own division, we keep talking about it. Look at all the young coaches there right in our own division, right? Shanahan, McVay, Gannon, now you throw in one of your own, and I'm not, it's nothing to do with Pete, nothing to do with 72, but we've talked about this. And it's just nice now that it's like, let's see what we can do. And this guy is a smart dude. And we've touched on where he's come from. And I'm excited about this hire. And then, then now we can kind of pick away the pieces of, who his OC potentially could be, right? But and we'll jump into that. But another quick note that like John did his due diligence. Like we talked about how wide he spread that net. This process took a long time. Obviously, he wanted to get Mike in the room, and he had to wait till they lose. But we sat here and talked Dan Quinn and Vrabel, and we were getting worried. John could have easily done something that just we would have been like, man, now you can get excited. You can get excited for this hire. Like, nothing against Dan Quinn, but those it wouldn't have been exciting. It wouldn't have been like this. We would have been disappointed. Like, let's not sugarcoat it. And now we can come in and say, let's get ready. Let's get ready. Like you said, we're watching Senior Bowl. We got the draft coming up. John and Mike now can just start game plan of how they want to do and just get this defense. Like you said, you know what? When you look at it too with the offense, you bring in the right OC, and that's going to take care of itself. We got the dogs, but you know what? Let's rock this defense and get it back to just like you said, the trenches, hard hitting, disciplined football. None of the crap we saw last year because it just
None of it.
was not good. And like you said, you're going against the Niners. You gotta slow them down, and you can do it. So that's how I'm looking at it, man.
Yeah, no, and definitely, dude. Like, it's going to be really interesting to see how this all kind of shapes out in the end. But like the discipline factor, you're going to see that he's not going to allow the shit that Pete did. I think there's going to be a big culture shift in that building. I don't think it's going to get away from the players come first and the players are important, but I think it's going to come to like, no, 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 like we're grinding. Like he's already come out and said, like, we're going to work and that's what we're going to do. Um, I just think it's very interesting how this like all shaped up because apparently, as he was coming to Seattle, this wasn't really a second interview. This was more like we're getting you to sign pen to paper kind of an interview process. But apparently the Commanders were still calling him while he was on his way. Apparently there's a reason why the Commanders weren't as appealing to him is because of the lack of talent on that defense. Right? Like they don't have Sweat. They don't have a Chase Young anymore. They shipped those guys out. They shipped a lot of their defensive pieces and young defensive pieces away this year. So Mike MacDonald truly would have to rebuild from scratch there. Where with Seattle, like you said, Mafe, Nuosu, Witherspoon, Love, like you're getting Wool and you're getting all these guys. You know who I think is going to benefit? One of the guys that's going to benefit the most from this? Draymond Jones. I think you're going to see a true resurgence in Draymond Jones now. And I think Mike Morris, if he's healthy, because he's played for McDonald at Michigan, I think you're going to see him have a breakout year next year just because of the fact that he's going to be playing in a system he's super familiar with. Like, that's the thing. Like, that's why I'm so interested in free agency now. I'm so interested in the draft because it's going to be so different than what we've seen before. Who are we attacking? What guys? And McDonald just coming out of the college ranks is going to have some ties in that area on guys to look at. Gems, like when Pete came out 14 years ago, he had some of that knowledge of guys to look at. So, no, man, it overall, like I'm reinvigorated about this franchise now. Like this hire put some freaking juice into me about, yeah, like you know what? Yeah, if it isn't a good thing next year and the team struggles a bit and we aren't 9-8, but we're 7-10, I don't care because I
Right.
guarantee you the games are gonna be a hell of a lot more entertaining to watch.
Yeah, and that's exactly what I'm with you, man. Like with the red, like I said, wins will take care of themselves. Like I said, and we're not going to be like Arizona. We're not going to be that bad.
No.
But you saw that people were excited about the direction that the Cardinals are going in with Gannon, their new GM, right? So and they know, hey, we got brighter pastures, right? So it's the same thing with McDonald. Like, and I still think, who knows? You get this defense on track. You get a couple pieces from free agency in the draft. You still got a good quarterback with good receivers and good running backs. You might surprise yourself. Like, let's not act like, hey, because we're bringing in this young guy in Mike MacDonald, that we're gonna automatically just, oh, we're gonna take a step back. Like that, why sit here and actually think that? Like, as far as the roster is concerned, we don't know. Where we've kind of talked about some of the obvious guys that are going to be cut and all this kind of stuff. But to me, or to us, a lot of that, some of it's dead weight, and then some of it's freeing up some money so you can go out and, hey, sign Leonard Williams, another guy that we just haven't even mentioned yet. That if we get him back on that defense, like we got some pieces. This was a team that, maybe like we talked about, maybe we sort of jumped the gun and overhyped them a little bit. But this was a team coming into last year that people were predicting had a shot at winning our division, going head to head with the Niners. So let's not sit here and be like, well, we just fire sailed off like Washington, like they traded to Chase Young and Sweat and all these guys. We didn't do that. We're making a coaching change here, something that need to be done. Stagnant, the word used by John Schneider, right? So like you said, you're pumped up now because you're excited. This could be a 12-win team. I don't know yet. We are far from starting to make predictions here with the wins. Like you said, though, but if they do win seven, yes, you're right. You're gonna see a different brand of football. And because you got this defensive guy, the defense now is only like, even if the offense was this dynamic offense, you still got to take care of the defense. So yeah, if you brought in Ben, now you okay, well, you better take care of your defensive coordinator, somebody who can really get the job done. Now you don't have to worry about that. Now whoever you bring in, he's a compliment to Mike. You
Mm.
guys are kind of working together, but it's Mike's D, and we know how his D has been. So it's like it's gonna be something where it's like, man, I don't know. You hit on free agency. John has a draft that, yeah, he's he's done well in the last couple. So I, I'm optimistic because I am. I'm always optimistic kind of going in an off season, but the way this is kind of already like we nailed this, man. Like this is our guy. And now we start moving forward. So it, what do you think? What are some names getting thrown out there? Say, let's say OC, because that's kind of the probably the more important next
Yeah,
move here.
that's going to be the more interesting
That's the interesting one.
situation.
Yeah. I mean, what have you heard? What do you want
So
to see?
I've kind of been hearing some things. I was on Calvin's show earlier, and he was throwing out some names. Honestly, for me, man, like it's kind of like what you said. They almost need to do the opposite of what they were going to do on defense and hire a veteran defensive guy. They might need to hire a more seasoned offensive guy just so Mike doesn't have to deal with that. His job, run the defense and the team. That's it. OC, let him go do his thing. So I've got a couple names. There's T. Martin, which is an obvious one. He's Baltimore's quarterback coach. He's been in the league. He played in the league. He could be the guy that comes over. He might come over laterally as the quarterback coach or passing game coordinator. Who knows? There's Dan Briere or Danny Briere. There's Mike Kafka. So Mike Kafka could be a possibility as an assistant head coach type thing. Because here's the key thing, and I think people need to understand this. John is still going to have say over who gets hired in the staff. That was one thing he made very clear in his presser. He will have ultimate say on what goes on with that staff. There's Tanner. I can't say his last name. Probably I think it's Extra Strand, who's the tight ends coach for and pass game coordinator for the Detroit Lions. One name that really started to intrigue me a bit is Clint Kubiak, who's the 49ers passing game coordinator. So the reason why I would like him, lineage of being in the league, his dad, Gary Kubiak, longtime NFL coach, Super Bowl winner. So you bring him in, he's from the 49ers. He'll know the Shanahan system. He can implement that while MacDonald runs the defense. There's also a couple other guys on here. Frank Reich, if you want a more veteran guy, he's always been a good OC, not so much a head coach, but an OC he's been very good as. And another name on here that kind of interests me that I threw on here, Josh McCown. So he was a quarterback coach down in Carolina, but he's been in the league. He's 40 now, I think. So he'd be a younger OC, but he's been in the league. I think he would be a good, interesting, candidate for that for the offensive coordinator job. The thing people have to understand is just because we won't have a flashy offense, maybe like the McVay or the Shanahan, if we pluck one of these guys with the weapons we already do have, there is a chance that we are still going to have a top 10 offense based on our talent alone.
Right.
And I think Waldron leaving and that whole offensive staff leaving, and we get this clean slate. To me, that truly speaks that this offense might go in a completely different direction. And I think they're going to fortify that O line. And
Mm-hmm.
I think Gino's going to come back. I'm saying it now. I think Gino's going to have a career year, better than his
Nice.
first year starting.
Right. And you just think, I mean, the key there is to shore up that interior line. Like you think if we can do that and he gets a little bit of time, he can be dangerous, right?
100%, man.
Right.
100%.
So yeah, I mean, I'm with you on that, man. I think yeah, I think it's just I think this is like, it's fun to jump ahead and be like, man, let's, you know,
These moves
start
are going to
predict
happen fast, though, man. They're
I
going to
know it
start
is. I
going.
know, but I just mean predict, throwing out predictions, wins and all this kind of stuff. But I just think today, today is just kind of like, okay, we got the guy. Like now we can settle in tonight and just kind of wake up and then be like, okay, now what's the next move? And I agree because they got to start working now. But like, I'm just one. Like I said, I reiterate it, but I am happy to hire Mike. Mike was one of the guys we was on our list, right? Um, but I just also think about names out there that were scaring us. And so that's another reason why I'm also ecstatic because there was guys out there because especially once and we didn't know exactly what John was thinking, but once you know Ben Johnson was off that list, now you're like, okay, uh-oh. Who's and we had, we've seen the second interviews, the list with the second interview guys, and that just it it's done, but that's another reason why I'm like, okay, I'm super stoked because he is like thinking like we were giving John credit, but it was like we also were like, man, John just kind of might do this because we talked about it's a safe hire and it's up. But I remember talking to Jackson Bevins and when we were talking to him, he goes, you know what, that the safe play probably isn't in John's interest because what he's been hearing is he doesn't have a long leash either. So, going another, 8-8 with Dan Quinn without any kind of change, because you might, like you said, you might go 8 with Mike, but you're seeing this like, hey, we're about to just take off,
Yeah.
and this team is hard hit and playing smash mouth and hard football, and so if you're the owner, you're like, hey, I'm good, like this is John's good, made the right hire, all this kind of stuff. So you know,
Well, here's something interesting. So I was listening to Dan Vien's show that he had on earlier today about the hire, and we're gonna
right.
have Dan on our next episode. And he was telling he mentioned a little tidbit that I guess he's got an insider that knows in the organization or something. But apparently, Pete, when he was saying he was fighting for his job, and like how you're talking about the 8-8 and playing it safe, basically they said Pete was trying to get one more year. Hey, give me one more year. And they almost did. They almost said, hey, we'll give you one more year on your contract. We'll give you to 2025. However, the stipulation is if you do not make past the divisional round, you and John and everybody are gone. And that's when Pete took the step back, which is why I think it took so many days for that press conference to happen and that decision. Because that's when Pete took the step back and said, you know what, there's a press conference. I really want to see Johnny do his thing. He's earned that. Was basically going, if I stay and we fuck this up, then John's gone too and he loses his opportunity. And so, like, I think you're right in a way. And I found it interesting they gave Mike MacDonald a 6-year deal,
Right.
which tells me I don't think the team's getting sold anytime soon. So
Hmm.
people can stop talking about that shit. I don't think that's going to happen. I think this is going to be like maybe Mike McDonald's still our coach here in 6 years, but the Seahawks are still owned by Jody Allen and Vulcan.
Sure.
But I'm wondering if the season starts out good or they have a good year. I would not be surprised if John Schneider does not get a contract extension that matches Mike McDonald's if this works, because I don't see you giving the GM who just hired the guy for 6, not giving him the extra 4 or 3 years on his contract, so that way him and this guy can see it out if they're supposed to be partnered together.
That's yeah, man. I agree with you, man. I think we can put all that to bed right now with Jody and the team, and like I said, did you she we just assume that she wants to dump the team. I mean, she's probably loving what's happening right now. And like you said, once she made that big move by letting Pete go, and we forget she had a say in the Russ move too. We talked about that. So there's two huge franchise moves. You want to talk about you know a couple of the biggest moves in the franchise. Jody's been involved. So she could have, like we talked about, she could have just sat back, let Pete at least ride out the contract, and then go from there. So and if Jody's the owner moving forward, I am fine, and I really actually like that because obviously that's the Allen family, and they how Paul was so committed, and it looks like she is also committed with this organization, and that's exactly what you want. And you know what? You don't need her in the limelight because you know what happens. You've seen what happens when owners get too involved. She's sitting back. She's involved, but she's not media involved. We don't need to know every move she makes. But as long as you're committed to winning and committing to this franchise, that's exactly what you want as a fan base.
Well, it's funny. I went on, so today I just decided, hey, you know what? Why don't I jump on Baltimore Ravens subreddit, see
Mm,
what's going on their end of the world? Man, it's
yeah,
not pretty. It's
no,
bad.
yeah,
Like some people are on there saying this, losing McDonald is worse than losing the AFC Championship game. There
yeah.
were people on there saying that they wanted the rate that the people were saying this, and I couldn't believe it. There were people on there saying they wanted them to fire John Harbaugh
Hmm.
and replace him with Mike MacDonald because they didn't want to lose McDonald.
Right, right.
Like you're talking about firing a very good coach to save this guy. Um, Yeah, they're saying that they've taken such a step back. Some of them predicting they may not even make the playoffs and how bad this is going to be.
Mm,
They just lost their DB coach who was possibly in running for Seattle's DC job, which was Denard Wilson.
right.
There's a good chance they may lose Zachary Orr, who is their linebackers coach, to be RDC here. Man, that's a rough way for the net last it's last week and a half here for the you know
Yeah.
Ravens to deal with. But it's it's very interesting now with this how this changes everything that we've talked about from the draft, from everything, because like probably part of those discussions were what do we do with Gino? Because on February 16th, Gino's owed some money. So I think we're going to find out some about Gino. If Gino gets that money, I think there's a talk that maybe Mike MacDonald went, hey, you know what? I can win with Gino. Give me Gino. I can get an offensive guy in here. We'll be fine with Gino. And I'm okay with that.
Yeah, and then real quick from that too, based we bring in on as far as an offense coordinator is concerned, people are always worried like, man, if we win and we were top five offense and we're winning games stuff like that, he's gonna get poached and man, we got to go get another one. But you know what that means? You're trending in the right direction. You're a playoff team. You're winning games, maybe a divisional round and all that kind of stuff. And but so you go get another one. And but if your team's that successful, and well, it starts with Mike MacDonald. So even if a guy gets poached and that defense is kicking ass, and you got Mike at the helm, like you got to be happy as hell. So I'm not saying you just go get anybody to replace that OC, but that means you're doing something right. And and if that defense is in the top whatever, then you're not as worried. You're not as worried like, oh man, man, because as much as we're preaching offense, we look at our defense and our numbers the last, I don't even know, five,
I'd say
six,
7 years.
seven. It's not good. Like it just hasn't been good. And aren't like we were getting so tired of like teams, no name backs running it for career highs and guys just playing soft and something was going on. So, you know, maybe you get on this train of like offensive, 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 and everybody's on board and everyone's getting on that train. Sometimes it fogs your judgment a little bit and being like, you know what? Maybe this is the guy we need. We need this in this organization. That doesn't mean you have to be this boring offense. And that's what people have to remember. We can still have a dynamic offense because we have dynamic offensive players.
Well, exactly. We get a couple guards in here. We change a bit of what we do. I just, man, I'm so stoked about this team and the direction it is now heading to where we were after that Cardinals game going, what do we do next? Because what we're doing isn't working. And talking to all the different guests that we've had on our show, um, I'm really excited to see where the conversation now goes. What happens in the next week, next couple of days here? His press conference is tomorrow at 11, so I'll be tuned into that. But speaking of the other team that's still left without a coach, says many people in league circles believe that DC Dan Quinn will become the head coach of the Commanders per Tony Pauline, who's a pretty tapped in insider. Mike Vrabel is a potential option as well, but it's possible he takes the year off. Um, I think, like I was saying on Steezy Smith's show today, I would really think that Dan Quinn's kind of the guy you want in DC right now. He can build a culture. He can help cultivate that there. He knows that division well. You're plucking a guy from a division rival in Dallas. So yeah, I think that's probably the best bet to go for the Commanders. But man, talk about that organization. Like snake bitten at the best. They get rid of Dan Snyder finally. Don or Rivera's out the door. They got good ownership. They got so much cap. They got the number 2 pick in the draft, and they miss out on both top candidates for the potential job.
Yeah, that's man, doesn't it feel like that's kind of what bad organizations like, even if they're
Mhm.
trying to do everything right, bad things happen. It's like you're set up to get like this potentially young franchise quarterback that you could grow with, and but I don't know, like I don't really pay attention in the Washington fan base, but are you are you stoked that you might get Dan Quinn? Like, so because we weren't, right? So and they thought they were getting Ben Johnson, and that's a crazy thing. So yeah, man. I mean, hey, and that's why I kind of go back and I preach about how this was the desirable job. Like I totally get Washington with the draft capital and the number two and all this kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, if you're Mike MacDonald or like you said, I don't know about Ben's personality, but you got to think about that too. Like, okay, that's great. I got this guy and this guy, but I know the history of this team. And I know the history of the Seattle Seahawks and the organization they are. And Pete Carroll's been there for 14 seasons, and John Schneider, and looks like they got a great owner in Jody Allen and the Allen family, and the city and the fans. The freaking fans, man. Like you want to come running out of that tunnel, with the 12s, man. Like you're human. Like and I got pieces here. I got tons of pieces. So man, I'm just it's yeah, what a good hire. What a just some great news starting this off, man. And yeah, so then the coming weeks, like you said, or the coming days, you get the press conference, you got, we're just gonna start just ripping here. So, I don't know, man. Any final thoughts?
Honestly, man, I'm super stoked. I'm super stoked for the press conference tomorrow.
Yeah,
See how this staff comes together. We've got a couple shows coming down the pipe here, which are going to be really interesting just to talk with different people about what their thoughts are on McDonald, the direction of the franchise now. But it
yeah,
finally
yeah.
feels exciting to be a Seahawk fan again.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. 100%. So guys, coming up, make sure you subscribe to the channel. We're gonna keep things rolling. Make sure you check out another next episode too. We got Dan Vians coming on the show, so we're super pumped to talk, especially the news today, and get Dan's insight on that. So yeah, man, we just wanted to jump on and obviously talk about the day here, and just keep you guys up to date with all that's going on. And yeah, we'll leave it here for now, and we'll check you guys out in the next one here.
All right, guys. See you later.
All
Go
right,
Hawks.
go Hawks.